I'm Derry Hart and this is my apprenticeship journey.
Tighter now, little touches, little touches.
If you could just give us a bit of how long have you been here, your path to getting here, what your job sort of entails now?
I've been here about 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
It's my 5th season. I guess my pathway to this point was leaving school at 16, going into an apprenticeship with SCCU. I worked at sort of 2 different organisations during that apprenticeship, one of them actually at SCCU internally. Apprenticeship was to be coaching in primary schools, PE, lunchtime clubs, football after school, whatever it might be. As well as that, at 16, I got into scouting at Coventry, and then I worked my way up at Coventry to pre-academy coach, academy coach. Then I went full-time with the operations side of things. Spent 5 years there altogether in terms of, sort of 16 to 21, maybe the last 2 or 3 years full-time there. And then obviously made the jump to Arsenal at around 21. Initially, I came in as a football operations assistant, which was basically all of the operational side of things to do with football. So whether that be games, training, schedules, mainly knowing that everyone has got a game, everyone's got training, everyone knows about it, all the different departments.
All the logistics.
So we call it MDT in terms of multidisciplinary team, whether that be physios, travel, coaches, S&C, facilities,
officials.
Yes, booking
Your
officials
job to
for
arrange
games.
absolutely everything.
Yeah, so that was my first year or two. Then obviously the coaching opportunity came up to go full time with it.
Brilliant.
Because whilst I was doing those other jobs, I was also coaching in the pre-academy and the academy across all the 7s, 8s and 9s.
People you work with, obviously, they all come from different route ways into the positions you're in now.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show, doesn't it, that you don't necessarily have to have an ex-playing career and things like that to get to where you are.
No, 100%. And I think for me now, having left school at 16 and gone straight into coaching, and now I'm 25, end of the season I'll be 26. So looking at 10 years, I feel like I've definitely gained a lot of hours on the grass, and not just the grass, but in different situations, whether it be a lunchtime club at a challenging school, in the city centre or whatever it might be. So I think, that's important. And again, a lot of it's transferable. But I think, there's lots of different pathways now.
You've got like a 10-year breadth there of different experiences dealing with parents, like you say, teachers, different inner city, different cultures, all that's helped support you in what you're doing now. Yeah,
and I think getting that hands-on experience from 16 years onwards, I think those first couple of years are vital. Like we say about the players in terms of when they first come in, about them enjoying football, experiencing the ball a lot. It's important of anything, the first couple of years when you're doing something, you're learning, that you get to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Build the passion for it.
Yeah, and get to have your own ideas and run with them and come up with sessions. And a lot of the time you get it wrong, but you're in an environment where you can get it wrong. Do you know what I mean? If you're in a school and a safe place where a session hasn't quite worked or the kids haven't enjoyed it as much, it's okay.
Yeah, you're not really directly under the spotlight, you are learning.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And did you always have that plan, that sort of approach, and how you were going to get yourself into football?
I don't think anyone has a plan in life that goes exactly to plan. I feel like once I got into coaching, I felt like I wanted to work in football.
Yeah.
And then once I worked in football, I felt like I wanted to work at a bigger football club.
And so I guess saying Arsenal are bigger than Coventry, Derry. Remember your roots.
I guess when I got into football, that's what I wanted to do. And then the opportunity came around to come into Arsenal with the operations side of things. Yeah. And obviously doing what I did before at Coventry in terms of working my way up, I knew that I'd sort of be able to make a good impression once I got in the door.
Cool. And how did your apprenticeships that you did help you, would you say, in this role and the roles you've had leading up to this one?
The main things was, I think when you leave school at 16, having those adult conversations straight away. So a lot of people might go to college or uni and there's not too much to deal with. I think for me personally, with an apprenticeship, you're in the workplace having conversations, real life conversations about real life situations, whether you need a day off, whether you want to book off some holiday, got a call in sick, whatever it might be. Or whether it's just about your general work performance. I think in terms of the qualification side of things, obviously you have your main core subject of your apprenticeships. I think mine was activity leadership. Then I went on to do sports development, and then I went on to do the AFP 1 to level 3 in school sport. But then alongside that, you have your sort of, I think it's called like employee awareness skills, isn't it? Where you learn about the workplace. So you learn about a hierarchy, a structure, line manager. You talk a little bit about whether you're getting a discipline and what that looks like verbal and what the process is. I think you learn a lot about work and real life stuff, which obviously appealed to me. And I think it's important because whether the core subject is what industry you want to work in, the other stuff in any industry is important to know.
Yeah.
And the life skills stuff in terms of adult conversations and difficult conversations, again, is transferable into any industry.
Yeah. You haven't had that many though, have you?
Not
Ever
yet.
been performance
Fingers
managed?
crossed. No, not yet.
Yeah, so you stay clear of that.
No. You're also managing parents as well in terms of their expectations of what to expect, and whether you're picking a team for something or there's a tour and some people don't get to go. And again, it links back to those 16-year-old difficult conversations. When you first go to a school and you have to speak to a kid's parent about, he's messing around after school club, that's uncomfortable at 16. No one finds that comfortable at 16.
Not at any age, really, managing conflict. No. Can you remember your first day with us as an apprentice?
Obviously at 16, I'd left school, didn't really have a mode of transport, because often you're doing a lunchtime club somewhere and then an after school club at a different school, and you have to get from A to B. So my family and my parents invested in a moped for me to get from sort of A to B. So often it was sort of bag of dodgeballs on the back and driving it, or footballs or whatever it might have been, cones in the little under seat compartment. And it was on my first week actually where at SCCU where I actually got hit by a car on the way to a session. Which we shouldn't laugh, but touch wood, I was okay.
It's only a few brain cells it got, didn't it?
Yeah. But again, it was like an interesting experience because you never want to let someone down, especially not on your first week of work at a new workplace, and you're put in that situation where you're in the back of an ambulance and you have to call your line manager and say that session that starts in half an hour, I'm not going to be there. But yeah, I mean, it's all experience, and in weather like this or when it's cold, and that moped, it was tough going.
Imagine. All pays off in the end though.
Yeah. I guess so.
How did you actually come to think about apprenticeships? What was it that first got you that sort of like on the hook thinking that's a pathway I could potentially take?
No one really starts seriously talking about careers until those sort of GCSE years. So when you're sort of maybe 15, 14, my dad came back from the local Chinese with a flyer. Yeah. I think it was a level 2 in sport leadership. Yeah, they were like, I think this would be good. And even before that, you push loads of things, aren't you? Like, your uncle runs this company, why don't you go and have a day out with him? Yeah. But I think this just appealed to me. It was sport, it was easy going, it was like one night a week for like the next 14 weeks. So it was quite intense, but it wasn't at the same time. And then, went to a local youth club, and it was the real basics of, okay, you've turned up, you've got 10 bibs, 3 balls, you've got 15 people, what are you going to play? It might be dodgeball, it might be, tag, rugby, whatever it might be. Yeah. And you learn those real basics of leading an activity. I started looking at the people running the session and go, well, their job looks all right, sport every day, coaching, helping people. So I did the level 2 leadership, and then I sort of worked on some of their summer camps in my school holidays, or they did like a Saturday club, so little bits and bobs. And then, it got to a point where they said, look, would you be interested in an apprenticeship? So I went for it, and then I did that. And then that's obviously when I then touched base with SCCU. So Liam was my tutor. He came in, I think it's like once a week or once every 2 weeks it was, to sort of go through the coursework, how's work, how is things? Yeah. And I think that initial thing with him, where asking him, what do you do? What have you done? And he spoke about sort of academy football. That was my first insight to go, that's a job kind of thing at 16. So that was quite interesting. Yeah.
He does like telling these academy stories, doesn't he? Would you say there's any sacrifices you've had to make? Yeah, so I think certainly in that moment in time when you're sort of 14 to 18, there's lots of, that's when parties start happening and stuff like that. And, I'm not going to say that I didn't ever go to a party, but I think there was definitely points where I prioritised work more than others. Yeah, I think it's definitely paid off in terms of consistency. I might have said to you before, when you're a coach, if you're not there, the session doesn't happen. Yeah. Whereas, if I worked in an office and if I don't turn up, someone else could maybe pick up that work. On, yeah. Whereas I feel like when you're running a session and you're a coach, if you don't turn up, then the kids are missing out. So you almost have that bit of responsibility as well. It's like, I have to be there. If there's kind of a few nuggets that you'd give someone who wants to be an apprentice or potentially wants to change career and get into something new, what would you say the key things are? I think the key thing for me that's obviously worked for me was do something that you love, because that helps you turn up when you don't want to turn up. Get out of bed in the morning. That helps you. There's one thing turning up for work early and with everything you need on the first day of work or first week, but when it gets past the first 3, 4, 5, and maybe you're doing a after school club in pouring down rain and you've had a bad day, but you love football, so you're there and you're coaching football, then you're still going to be enjoying it at some level. So what's now for Derry Hart then? What's next? Do you want the head job here? I think long term, I'd like to be an academy manager, or certainly, in the senior roles of an academy at some point. Question then, who would you say has been your best manager ever? The World Cup winner, or I don't know, myself? Or...
Yeah, I think everyone has their pros and cons, don't they? I think there's actually a time where you gave me a month off once, didn't you? Remember that?
No, I'm just kind all the time.
No, I think I went travelling for a little bit around the south of France and I flew to Turkey. I'm not sure if you remember it. And I said to you...
Yeah, you had your teeth done, didn't you? No. Yeah, we told you to go and find yourself.
Go and sort yourself out.
Now, I think some of your wisdom's obviously come from me.
No. Think?
Hopefully. Do you have people that you manage in your role now?
Yeah, so there's like a couple of part-time coaches. I don't like to call it managing because I feel like that's a very...
leading.
Yeah, leading, I guess, is more of a suitable word. I send them sort of the periodisation for the week in terms of what they're on and what they need to do. They still have freedom within that framework to deliver what they want to do, what they think's best.
Yeah.
And then I guess if they don't marry up, then there's an area for feedback. If there's not much flow to the session or intensity or whatever, you can then obviously have a conversation. But I feel like I've probably leading how I've been led in terms of like not too hands-on, not too aggressive, bit laid back. As long as you get it right, there's not a big issue. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to be on you about anything.
What is it that you love most about your job now?
I think it's giving kids opportunity when you're able to give them opportunity at a club like Arsenal to say, you know what, we really believe in you and, you know, we wanted to sign you for Arsenal. I think that's quite rewarding, especially if you've seen them from 6 years old and now they're 9 or 10 and they're winning tournaments and you've played a part in their early days. I think we're quite lucky that the club is probably the most aligned it's ever been, whether that be Per and Mikel and the management team here with Luke Hobbs and Matthew Joseph. They're very keen to develop the coaches. And I feel like we get a lot of opportunities. So whether that be watching 18s and 21s and working with them over a little period of time, and at times they're then training with the first team and you get a little snippet of what that looks like, I think is really invaluable, really. And if you said to me, like 16-year-old me, in 10 years, you're going to be stood there watching a under-21 session at Arsenal and, you know, getting involved, I probably wouldn't have believed you. You do get the other perks and values of the materialistic things in terms of your kit or watching Premier League games.
Little trips abroad
often.
And stuff now and again.
Yeah, so sometimes we go on tour and been to sort of Croatia and Belgium and countries abroad. And again, you realise how big Arsenal is in terms of
the reach.
Yeah, the reach and how many people know of the club and are obsessed with the club and are real supporters of it.
If that's been the first 10 years, I mean, the next 10, who knows, eh?
Eventually, I'd like to be in a position where I'm leading a bit more wider reach than one age group. That would obviously be the goal for me at some stage. But yeah, I'm happy with what I'm doing at the moment and continuing to get those development opportunities to just get better, I guess, at the current job that I'm in.
Not forgetting your free lunch every day and access to
the
gym.
Food is good. The food is
good. You're treated quite well, aren't you?
Yeah, it's not
a bad place to work,
It's not a bad place to work at all.